Welcome to episode 123 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast, recorded July 11th, 2021. My name is Ian. I live on Vancouver Island. I'm a student of preparedness, target shooter, and my farm's designated mediocre handyman.
I'm Alan. I'm a safety trainer, first responder, security expert, and overall safety nerd with absolute confidence in Ian's abilities.
I am Jason. I'm an outdoor enthusiast and a hunter's ed instructor and Washington State licensed trapper.
Right on. Want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air? You can buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch, very tactical, at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
If you are enjoying the show, please take a few minutes, like us on Facebook, and submit a review on iTunes. We also want your feedback, good, bad, and even if there's just a topic you want us to cover. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, I couldn't think of a good one for trapping, but we have some captive content for you this episode.
Oy.
All right. We're going to start off with some preparedness-related news, then we're going to let you know what we did for preparedness this week, and then we're going to get on to the main topic, which is trapping, and its many uses in everyday life, preparedness, and maybe some other stuff. We'll talk about that later. News time.
Trapping for fun and profit. I put one article in here today, just kind of a developing story. In Havana, Cuban citizens are protesting the Communist Party, chanting freedom, which is apparently an anti-government slogan, while being beaten and pepper sprayed. The communist leader is calling for those loyal to confront protesters directly. Shockingly, communism is not working once again. It's
well, clearly this wasn't real communism.
It's not real communism, because otherwise everyone would be happy or everyone would already be dead. There are a lot of things going on there, and I do genuinely feel bad for the Cuban people, where their primary source of domestic production is tourism, which hasn't existed for the last darn near 2 years. But they've got some definite challenges to overcome here, and of course the communist leader is I forget his name, Diaz something or other. He's blaming the U.S. for it, and I find that really interesting, considering the U.S. hasn't done business with Cuba since 1959 or something. But all of a sudden it's their fault.
Well, hold on. Isn't Raul Castro like the brother in charge right now?
He was. But this article that I got from Reuters was saying that his name, the president Miguel Diaz-Canel, is his name. He is the president of the country and apparently also heads the Communist Party.
I had no idea. There you go.
Neither did I. That's how little I care about Cuba in general.
Yeah. Which is too bad.
I do genuinely feel bad for the people. Like, it's a beautiful country and beautiful people. I've had a great time every time I've been there. Some of the most welcoming and wonderful people that you could ever meet, and they're in a really tough situation where they've got nowhere to go, and it's been so many generations that they wouldn't really know what to do without significant interference from another government. So hopefully this goes well for them, and we defeat communism much closer to home than we are elsewhere in the world, and make the bad commies go away.
Yeah, especially when they're calling for one half of the country to confront the other. That's kind of a crappy way to go. But
that is. It tells me that they've kind of lost control, and that a revolution is on the horizon. I hope so, anyways.
Yeah,
I really do.
Well, I've got one. It's Albertans are asked to conserve power and not charge their electric cars. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to have a little gleeful expression on this one. I think a little Schadenfreude, because it's amazing how the energy sector, which has been beaten to death here, how dirty, horrible oil is not the way to go, and electricity is the new future, and everything else. The minute anything goes slightly wrong, they have no grid to support anything.
And I find it really interesting that charging their cars is the thing that they're going after, because we have an electric car in the family. It lives in the driveway when it comes home in the driveway, and it sucks literally pennies a month worth of fuel or worth of electricity. It doesn't take a huge draw. Of all the things that are out there that they could be conserving, electric cars is probably pretty low on the list of problems.
Well, I'm old enough to remember, like I was telling you before the show there, about how they were telling that the grid is fragile and limited in its capacity. So we had to go from incandescents to compact fluorescents, then to LEDs in order to preserve the grid for the burgeoning population and all this other stuff.
Yep, I remember that.
And then all of a sudden they turned right around and said, but we've got plenty of spare capacity to charge everybody to have for everybody to have an electric car, even in winter in Alberta. And all of a sudden they're like, well, it's hot out, and that's it, boys. We're sorry, we're done. I can't even.
Yes.
So, and again, between the battery efficiency in the wintertime and the limited grid and the realities of all this, it doesn't actually save anything, and especially when they got energy right there, it just makes me mad. But anyway,
tell us how you really feel.
Last one, evacuation order. Almost no notice, of course, evacuation order issued for the residents of Sun Peaks, which is a ski hill near Kamloops, BC, which is right near Lytton, BC. Funnily enough, the mountain also used to be called Todd Mountain, which was German for death. Fun fact. Anyways, but the old ski hill was called Todd Mountain. And so all these people had pretty much zero notice to evacuate, and they've got 132 houses ready to go up in flames. And people just pretty much had enough time to grab a bug out bag and leave. So,
well, best wishes for all of them. It's a terrible situation to be in.
Yeah.
No
yeah.
way.
Harsh. But again, having at least a bag full of credit cards and spare undies would help. It doesn't have to be a tactical bug out bag, just a reality one. That would be great too. So. Anyway,
this is about the only place where I can get in a carbon monoxide detector joke. I mean, that would be another great thing to add to your emergency evacuation bag.
But by the time that went off, that to be too late. The place we waiting.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
All right, time to move on to what we've done lately for preps.
My entire life right now revolves around building my garage and working out. So that's what I've been doing. I'm ready for concrete. Of course, I'm ready for concrete now, and it's going to rain all week, which is great for wildfires and great for temperatures, but not so good for progress on my my shop here. Had a great visit this weekend with my immediate mag, which is mostly just cousins. They're great folk, and they came down to help me celebrate getting married. So I did that yesterday. That's been my week.
Cool. Of course, I told you the dogs would bark.
You did. Anyway. And then they did.
They did. All right, so for myself, basically back to brass scrounging after I did those sales a little while ago there. I've been carrying on with that Patriot Podcast Challenge where they had that Rezul Ruck March coming up in mid-July here. And so I've been doing my 10K hikes every day. That's 6 miles for the American folks. Basically trying to do those every day and down. Well, not so much get the time down. Actually, I've been lately just trying to hack through the jungle and trying to make sure the trail's actually workable and usable at a reasonable pace. So I was bringing the clippers with me today, just trying to get the last of the trails cleared out. So anyways, that should be good to go for, I guess it's 11 days from now when they start that. We have to do 4 6-mile marches in a row. So getting excited about that. And then let's see here. What else am I doing? I had to go do some work, actually. It was about time, but I went back to work for a couple days. Did my kind of performance review for the year. So that was good. I guess I passed because they didn't, fire me on the spot. So that was good. Reached out to a couple listeners, but we're going to talk about that a little later on. But that was good. I had some good interaction with some listeners of the show. And then I managed to meet another new neighbor to the neighborhood, bought some eggs, and kind of got to meet each other, which is always good in case of emergencies to get to know your neighbors. So that was pretty much it. It was a pretty slack week, actually.
Yeah, I was waiting for the other 3 pages worth of stuff here. What's going on here yet?
Slack. I was off island for a few days. So.
This is going to be the shortest episode we've ever had.
Could be.
So about 2 weeks ago, we had an issue where my neighbor had a AC unit brand new plugged into his wall, and the wiring was old. Caught the house on fire on the inside wall. My wife and my kids were here. I was at work, and they got the knock on the door to evacuate our house because we're only 6 feet apart from our neighbor. So my wife, my kids got shuffled out the house. My wife without her shoes and no car keys. So our new plan for the future is to have some bug out bags and some better kit in our cars for our kids, at least, to have for stuff like that. that was kind of an eye opener for us, being able to be shuffled out and going, okay, we didn't even have 5 minutes to grab anything. So that's
sure.
our new project.
That sure is a eye opener when that happens, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, I guess it's time to move on to the main topic. So, I guess for myself, why are we talking about this? Well, I mean, as a Canadian, as Canada as a nation, we started off with fur trading as the birth of our nation, and obviously it's got a long history there. A lot of people ask about trapping as far as food procurement and maybe revenue generation, and/or some people want to try clothing projects with it and everything else. So it's kind of one of those things everybody wants to talk about, but doesn't know exactly how to get started. So we thought we'd get Jason on here to give us a hand. So I guess right off the bat, I should talk about yourself, Jason. Can you tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an avid outdoorsman. I've hunt, fish, trap, teach hunter's ed, anything all outdoors that I possibly can, anytime I can.
Awesome. So trapping, is that your side gig, or is that is that your main job, or how do you describe it in your life?
Started as a hobby. It's gone more towards me being able to teach. I'm not an instructor for trapping as of yet. It's a goal of mine to become an instructor trapper, just to spread the word and be able to teach the legacy of that passion and that craft moving forward. It is a craft that has, I think, gone away with a lot of stuff throughout the times. So I just try to carry on the legacy the best I can with it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, our longest running corporation in Canada is actually the Hudson's Bay Company, which got started the fur trade as well. And it's still known as the Bay. And throughout northern Canada, they still have northern stores, which were part of the Hudson Bay Company and everything else. They still supply our northern outpost kind of towns. So it's definitely a integral part of our history too. But would you describe it as like a viable job nowadays in certain parts of even the States, like in Alaska or anything else? Or is it more something a guy can only do part-time to make things work? Or is it kind of an ongoing thing?
Depending on where you're at, there are definitely people up in Alaska, upper interior, things like that, where that is a big source of their income, is the fur trapping. They have the ability to do that more than kind of, I think, the lower 48 down here. We're a lot more, I'm going to call it city locked for the most part. Mm-hmm. Having trap lines and property and things like that becomes kind of difficult to go through and have those things that are able to have for that. But it is still a viable option for people for income in select circumstances. I think that for the most part, a lot of the trapping really comes from, or the furs come from a lot of the fur farms that you mm-hmm. can find throughout the lower 48.
So I was going to follow that up with, right, if it is a source of income, what is the income, right? Obviously you mentioned the fur, so the pelts are sellable. Is there anything else that can generate revenue within the trapping, within trapping?
Furs are pretty much the highest part. It's what you do with the furs. So if you want to just sell your furs to a fur buyer, they go into an auction. They're graded on like an ABC level, and then they're putting a lot of 100 or 1,000, and then you get whatever that lot's bought for at the auction. You get that percentage back of what you put into it with your furs. If you want to take your furs and process them and tan them and then turn them into something, as just an individual, you have that ability to sell it. I think at a much higher rate, or ability to sell to different people for different items, if that makes sense.
And then, of course, as a preparedness tool, you can both keep the fur and the meat from the animal. I imagine it's similar where you are to where we are, where reselling of game meat is not permitted. Is that accurate where you are as well?
You can't sell the game meat. So if you harvest an animal, whether it be hunting or trapping, if you say, I were to give you guys some of the meat, I'd have to give you a slip of paper that has my wild ID, which is my license number, the GMU or game management unit that I harvested that animal in the date that I harvested it is kind of like a receipt, and you have to keep that with the meat until it's all consumed. So there's no selling of it, but I can give and donate that meat, not a problem. Yeah.
Actually, it's interesting because same thing with us. We can't traffic in wildlife products per se, but I believe you can obviously like feed somebody with it and everything else. But so when you get your furs as a trapper type of thing, you said that there's auctions are one way, and is there bulk fur buyers? Because like back in the day here in Canada, we had North American fur auctions, and they were like this massive corporation. We'd like fill a hangar in Toronto, and these trappers would come in from all over Canada, kind of lay down their pelts, and they'd kind of go up and down. It's almost like an old gun show or something. They kind of auction it off that way after they took a look at them. How does it work for you guys?
So there's a lot of different ways. If you know somebody, obviously, you're in the industry, you go to rendezvous and different meets, find people that buy your furs locally. You can go online. Trying to look at my notes to the website I've used in the past. It's not coming to my brain right now. Okay. You can just look up. There's multiple places throughout many states. You may have to ship them out of state if you don't have anybody close to you. But there's a lot of fur buyers still in the market.
Yeah, like I kind of wonder with certain people going the way they are with furs and everything else, if there's still like a big enough market for it and everything else. But it's good. There's still buyers out there.
Yeah, a lot of it does get shipped overseas. China is probably one of our biggest consumers of furs from the States.
Okay, it's good to know.
What do they use it for? Or is it just for fashion?
Mostly fashion. They obviously any kind of leathers, tan products like that can be used for multiple avenues with different things.
Tools required. What kind of tools we need to get set up if you want to get into trapping?
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
All goes into what you're wanting to trap and your area. So the different types of traps out there, body grip traps, the Conibear series, to spring traps, single doubles, live trapping, which are cage traps. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with if you've ever tried to catch a squirrel or a cat are running around your neighborhood or anything. Those drop door traps, those what I have to use here in Washington, where they're only allowed to live trap unless it's a aquatic animal like beaver or nutria or something. Which obviously being in water, they'll drown when they're trapped. So, but yeah, going with the different types of traps. Your pack can have a numerous amount of tools from shovels, pickaxes, saws to one of my special tools that I carry with me is what I call my fence post tool. It's a pair of pliers with a hammer and a pick on it and a wire cutter. It's just kind of like the multi-tool for trapping is what I call it. It's just an all-around good thing to have, lightweight. So.
So you have live traps. Now, do you have to, I guess, put the animal down at some point, like carry a little 22 or something with you? Or? Yeah,
there's a couple different ways to do it. Gassing is probably the most humane. Gassing, drowning, and then most people will just carry a little small pistol rifle with them. Do your best to not harm the furs. That's the main reason why we're all out there trapping is the pelts. So you got to take a well-placed shot to make sure you're not damaging it. So that costs you money.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Like, I think my trapping experience is limited to catching a couple raccoons in the live traps, and that's about it. So.
That's what my life consists of for the most part with those kind of traps. Like I said, here in Washington, we have live trapping laws. I have to check my trap within 24 hours of setting it. And then I have to be able to release it if it's not the proper animal that I'm going for, or if it's undersized or, the neighbor's cat. So
that's fair.
How much of a pain in the ass your neighbor's cat is.
You'd be surprised what you can catch out there sometimes. I've had some weird stuff. I've had squirrels, caught up on my traps. Obviously, not something I'm wanting to trap and things like that. But I've heard of people catching the stray cat or a dog that's just out in the woods, and they go for that bait. So, yep. That's when it's nice to have the live traps, because at least then you don't have to go explain something to somebody.
That's fair. Actually, Scott has a quick question for you. How big of an area will your territory cover when you set like a trap line, like on average?
That's so depending on where you're at. If you have a trap line that goes into obviously, if you run a 5-10 mile trap line, that's what you can cover, and as many traps as you want to fit into that as far as that goes. For me, it comes down to what I can carry. Me, my son, and my nephew, we kind of work our trap lines together. So we pack my truck up and go up into a territory, and we split off, because obviously my live traps are big cages, so they're very heavy and bulky. So I can carry about 4 or 5 of them at a time, and then run that line, set them, get back to my truck, and carry another set and continue on. But yeah, it all goes into like how heavy your gear is and how much work you want to put into it.
That's neat. Scott was just asking if you have to put up any warning signs near the traps for anybody. I guess if it's not a leg hold, I guess it doesn't really matter. But do you have to put up any signage?
So my traps, all my cage traps have to have my wild ID, which is a metal plaque that sticks on there. So in case, like I said, I'm required to check my live traps every 24 hours on the mark minimum. And then a submerged trap every 72 hours. So if a game warden or official comes by, they can see my trap has been triggered or been set. They can take a note of it, and they'll write down my wild ID. My wild ID is linked to Fish and Wildlife, and it has all my information for me purchasing my tags and my licenses. So they know exactly who I am and where I'm set up.
Awesome. Pierre mentions you could pretty much you could send the cat to China if you wanted. I suppose you could, yeah.
The Canadian Prepper Podcast does not condone the illegal trapping or reselling of domestic animals.
That's right. Yeah, no matter how tasty. Awesome. So licensing, you mentioned you have to have a wildlife ID number. Is there a big process to get licensed as a trapper for you guys?
For us, it was you kind of like getting licensed for being a hunter. You take a class. Go through your class. They educate you on all the ins and outs, the laws. You go through a test to evaluate your knowledge process. You go through a field skills, which the field skills was basically the processing of a beaver and a raccoon. That's what they had for us, and everybody has to participate. So you're just not going to just willy-nilly go to town on a fur with a razor blade. So you get really trained on how to process those furs, because that's what we're out there for. Laws are very, every year our hunters regulations come out, and that has the trapping parameters in it for different GMUs or game management units. Through that, you can see what territories are open, what bag limits are for different animals, and you just kind of set your territory for that and go from there.
Cool. So yeah, on that note, actually, with the game management units and everything else, so these trap lines, like as you set up a line yourself, are they regulated or defined, or like could they be auctioned off and only one person can trap in that area, or how do you get one set up?
Depending on your area. So I hunt and fish and trap on public land, so I don't own any rights to any land I use. I do my best to stay off well-beaten trails that I know people will travel. So I do my due diligence to say, okay, this is a hiking trail. I want to be far enough away so nothing or no one can be around or be interfered with by what I'm setting. If you are in another territory or you have your own property, you can run your own trap line on your own property, obviously with the proper license and buying of your trapper's tag. If you go online, you can search for auctions in different states. The auctions will be for a season or up towards of X amount of years for ability to access certain lands, or just contacting a landowner and asking if you can have a written permission to hunt and trap on their land.
So numbers wise, is there like a bag limit, or how many animals per season, or is it kind of a free for all in certain time periods, or how does it work for trapping?
It all depends on the years. So every year, biologists go out and they do a census counts of animals and territories, and they'll tell you in your regulations what is populated in certain areas. Okay, we are cutting back the bag limit on this animal in this territory, but on this one we're going to open it because they're overpopulated. So going through your regulations every year is key, and just knowing what and where you want to go through and what territory. So you may get a territory through an auction that may be thin on beaver, but bobcat is a boom. So and then the next year might be a trade-off because you're thinning out the predators and letting the herbivores and omnivores kind of flourish by taking out the predation.
Cool. Just a side note here, Patrick is asking, this is a Canadian law thing, I'll cover this one. As a trapper, can you get the wilderness handgun carry permit? It's one of those things you can get from the government, but they don't really give out those permits. Yeah, authorizations to carry in Canada, as a general rule, as a prospector and or a wildlife protection ATC. After a process, you can get them with certain caliber restrictions. As a trapper, I don't think they can actually give one to you, or they can, sorry. They can always give you one to you, but they won't. They'll expect you to use like a pump action 22 or something like that. That's from my dad's old RCMP buddy that used to trap. I found that out. But anyways, yeah, there's not much you're going to be able to get as a trapper. Prospector, one thing, but yeah, not as a trapper. And then
can I so they allow prospectors to carry firearms, but not trappers?
Only if you're in a heavily, like a wildlife danger area. Like, so if you're in the middle of grizzly bear country and you can prove that there's a definite danger and you can prove that, so on and so on, you have to take an ATC, like basically a carry course. Then you have to have they tell you what calibers you can carry. You can only carry like a 44 Magnum 6-shooter, or you can only carry a 10 millimeter or whatever. They won't let you just carry a 9 just for fun, right? Like it's very restrictive up here compared to the States.
That's something for me to learn. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So Jeff is also asking, in a shit hit the fan scenario, what would be the best trap for a non-trained person to use?
So the easiest kind of trap to go with, obviously, if you're a preparedness medicine person, you know what a snare is. You can carry a lot of snares. That is a numbers to gain kind of thing. So 100 snares might get you, one animal. The best trap to go for and easiest of use would be, in my opinion, would be a conibear 101 or 100. I think it's called a conibear 101. It's a body grip trap, single set spring, real easy to handle, and since it's a body grip that if it does lock down on you, it'll hurt, but it won't break anything. You're not gonna lose a finger or anything like that. So it's very user friendly to go with, and they're kind of more lightweight. I think you could probably in a regular backpack probably carry 3-4 of those and not really be over encumbered.
Yeah, I was thinking of those heavily two-toothed like spring-loaded traps would be like a leg hold or whatever. Yeah. Like they'd be just begging for an injury at that point if you're not used to using them or whatever. Honestly, I found I have a pair of live traps here on the property just for like raccoons and stuff, but they're easy to use, but they're easy to set off too, right? So it's easy to get like it triggered. So.
Oh yeah, safety is very paramount when it comes to being taught how to trap. I was taught by a good friend of mine that the buddy system is always key. Got to think, I'm hiking, 6-7 miles into the woods with these traps, and I'm digging in the ground and wet and cold. I set a trap and it actually locks me, and now all of a sudden I'm stuck there till I can either get help or get myself out. That's not the scenario I want to be in. So, having somebody there to help you, not to mention help carry the traps, is always a good thing too.
Yeah. I might have to get Pierre to clarify this question too, but he's got one that says, in a shit hit the fan scenario, what do you recommend to save or make your harvest last? Can you smoke or dehydrate, all depending on the scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. So if he's talking about the furs, yeah, you can tan out in the wild. There's different processes for that. If you're talking about saving the meat, yeah, simple smoker. If you've ever been out hunting or fishing, learn how to set up a simple smoker. You can definitely extend the life of that meat than just letting it sit out. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Actually, a sidebar. Have you tried any of the wild meats that you've caught, like a nutria or anything like that?
Everything that I have caught, I have tried. I'm a firm believer and I don't waste anything. Saying I tried doesn't mean I enjoyed all of it, but yeah, I've
When in doubt, wrap it in bacon.
Hey, that's kind of
Bacon makes everything taste good. So
absolutely, that and hot sauce.
Yeah, that's right. Best animal to trap, out of curiosity, from your opinion, like using a live trap or whatever, just for ease of capture, or maybe like biggest profit margin, or like what's your kind of preferred animal for you to chase after?
For the abundancy where I'm at, it's definitely going to be a raccoon. They're trash hunters, so you don't have to really work to hide the trap. They're used to like digging in all sorts of things. Unfortunately, even 6-7 miles out into the woods, they're still accustomed to being around refuge from humans. So they've had that mindset that they know where all the sweet treats are, and then that's abundancy. If you want to go for profitability, beaver and bobcat here in Washington are pretty much the two highest to go for profitability. You get a prime class A beaver pelt, you can get probably anywhere from $20 to $50 for. A prime bobcat pelt can go upwards of $100.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's how we started out as a country, is beaver fur, beaver pelt hats. Like they used the velvet on the beaver, I guess, and that's how there was a big fashion back then. So
yeah, the what I call the Abe Lincoln hat, the big top hats, the underlying felt of the beaver.
Actually,
that's what
I have one that was my great grandfather's, maybe, on my mom's side, and I think it dates back to about 1837. Yeah, it's beaver felt, and it's quite the spectacle.
Yeah, that's what drove America to be, for the westward expansion was driven by Jedediah Smith and explorers just trying to learn new trapping lines and exploring the country. So, yep.
Well, that's awesome. Quick question here from Pierre again. What's the best that you've tried that was surprising how good it was?
Beaver tail. Beaver tail was actually very
Which
good.
means something very different to Canadians than it does to Americans.
Yeah, it's actually it's a donut up here, but or a fancy donut. But so yeah, beaver tail, that'd be leathery, would it not? Like it would be like kind of like a hunk of.
It's kind of thin. You peel it apart. Obviously, take the top layers off and stuff like that, and it's very good. I can akin it to kind of a really fatty oxtail.
Okay, so there's actually vertebrae in there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
I like oxtail. Yeah.
Huh. So I had no idea. Cool. Is it possible to trap enough to provide for like a family's protein needs for the year, or just that would it be pushing it a bit?
Year-round trapping, you could. I really worry about depleting the wildlife in that scenario.
Okay.
Most people know, if they hunt and fish and stuff like that, is there's seasons for that. The prime season for trapping is November to March. The colder times when food is scarce and things like that. If you're trapping in the summertime, you run the risk of taking a lot of the yearlings and things like that of any kind of animal. So definitely spread it out. Don't just try to like, this is all I'm going to do and I'm going to eat meat all year long, and so it's possible. Just make sure that you're not going to over deplete your territory.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about that. That's for sure. Because yeah, family of beavers. Yeah, you take out the yearlings, and then next year you got nothing, I suppose, right?
Very much so. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Could you kind of run us through a simplified step-by-step process of doing how to preserve a hide for sale? Like how would you just you got the animal and take it from there? Like just kind of a general Cole's notes.
Step one would be stripping and skinning the animal, removing all the fat and sinew from the hide, letting it dry. You can either let it dry in a cool, dark environment or salt it kind of makes it go fast. Takes a lot of salt to salt a hide and make it sure it's all dry. That kind of pretty much for the most part will give you rawhide. Really stiff, rigid, cardboard like consistency. After that, if you want to process it more, you'd have to break the hide, roll it, kind of rough it up really good, make it be able to accept the tanning solution. From tanning solutions, way back, they used to use barks, brain tanning. You can take any brain matter from the animal, and that makes a solution that will tan the hide and give you a really soft leather. Or you can go purchase tanning solutions from any hunting supply. I don't know if you guys have Cabela's up there or Tractor Supply, but
yeah, we've got
a lot of. Okay, but yeah, they'll have in their hunting sections tanning solutions and things like that. That's over the counter. But there's so many different ways. Trapping and hunting has been around for so many years, well before convenience of stores and manufacturing. So, yeah, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, so I guess to back it up with the tanning process. So yeah, like you said, bark. So usually, like, is it a cedar or some sort of bark that actually has like tannins, like a high tannin count, and that's what allows you to tan the hide.
Yeah,
and then
Western red cedar, cypress, things like that. Yeah, you just kind of pound the outer side. So inside there's a reddish layer, and that's what you kind of pulverize and throw that in the water until it really seeps that color into the water, and then you can use that for tanning. Yeah.
Okay. And then usually, is there enough brains in the animal to tan its own hide usually, or do you have to kind of like get some external solution like eggs and mayo or something, or like some sort of high fat content thing?
Weird biology. Every animal on the planet carries enough tanning solution in its own brains to tan its own hide.
There you go. Kind of all in one package.
Yep.
It's almost like they did it on purpose.
Yep, right.
It's amazing.
They came ready to go.
Yeah, that's right. That's very neat to know. And high fat is the thing, right? Like if you want to make it supple and everything else, is that's kind of the way it goes?
What was that? Sorry.
So you want to have like some sort of a high fat solution though, right? Like just to make it like soft and supple.
Yeah, so the more pliable things like that is, you want to have a good paste consistency, let it absorb in, and work it that way so it absorbs that tannin and it leaves the hide flexible, but has enough chemicals to make it not degrade or rot away. Yeah.
Okay. And you said this will take days. Like this isn't like an afternoon event, is it?
Oh no, just the drying process will take days. Even if you use salt and everything known to man to try and dry that hide, that'll take days. Once it's dry, it could take, depending on how strong and you got a team of people working with you to rough up a hide. A beaver hide usually takes probably the better part of a week per hide.
And yeah, you mentioned breaking it, so rolling it around to kind of like we've all played with dog rawhide, right? So I'm assuming that's kind of like the equivalent when it's rawhide. So to break it up, I would imagine that'd be quite the process to kind of make that happen. So do you just roll it over like a round piece of wood, or how does that work?
Anything you can find that won't puncture the hide. Yeah, take a stump, roll it over a stump. I'll try to hang it, and I take the backside of my axe where it's kind of rounded, and I'll sit there and just kind of gouge at it and things like that. Yeah. Whatever it takes. Every hide's different, so yep.
Locally where you are, is like buckskin or kind of clothing making out of the hide still a thing, or is it always just shipped over to China and just be done with it?
I don't know a lot of like retail stores that like do that stuff. So if people that are independent, definitely I see buy or purchase hides more than retail stores. So if you're wanting to go retail, you'd definitely be going to a fur buyer to send to an auction. If you know people that do crafts and different things like that, they are definitely probably the biggest consumers of hides and furs that I know of.
Cool. You mentioned snares before there. You got a fair amount of experience just using, like, setting up a bunch of little snares for rabbits and squirrels and stuff. Like, everybody talks about having snare wire in their bug out bag or survival kit or whatever, but like, I mean, nobody knows what to do with it for the most part. So like, and like, if you guys said like 100 snares, like, I mean, obviously a one roll of snare wire is not going to do it. So like, would you recommend it for survival kits in reality, or is it this more of a practice bushcraft thing?
Definitely more of a bushcraft. As far as survivability, if you don't know really what you're doing, don't try it till you learn it. The big thing, snares versus traps. Traps, you're attracting the animal because you're using baits and you're setting in an area where you know that they kind of populate. So it's not hard to get them to come to the trap. Yeah. Snares it's a target of opportunity. You're finding an area where you think the animal's going to be, and you're literally trying to trap them on their way to or from something. So they could have been there a week ago. They could have been there 3 days ago running from something, and they ain't coming back. But you see the signs, so you're going to set one. Generally, whenever I talk to anybody about doing snares and stuff like that, I say it's 100 to 1. For every 100 snares you set, you might get one animal. So even in like my kit, things like that, I don't carry snare wire, things like that. Here, it's not something that I feel is going to be a calorie burn to calorie gain offset, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely, it does make sense, because that's one of those things again where we talks about it, but nobody knows what to do with it. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Setting traps and things like that is a lot of hard work. So.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the manuals, you can see where they have like, try and divert little game trails and try and, like funnel them into a certain area and have a snare there, or like on the tree side and everything else. But yeah, like that doesn't seem like a high win situation.
No.
So Brad says the odds are not in my favor. Well, no, I would say if you're down to the point where you're post plane crash and you're trying to figure out snare wire to feed yourself, you're probably out of luck.
Yeah, do what you got to do. I mean, if you're in an area and you can set it and not travel a far distance for it, hey, I mean, everybody gets lucky once, right? So.
Yeah, cool. So other than that, Alan, you got anything else?
No, I can't think of anything. I was going to make a joke about using urine to tan the hide, as go way back to the medieval times when people sold their urine for that. But we covered that pretty well. So I've got nothing else. I have no more sarcastic comments left.
I'm gonna stick with bark soup on that one versus urine. I don't know.
I didn't want to mention that as far as that on the show. So.
Hey, you know what? We've had worse than that. That's not.
I think you overestimate the class of the audience here.
So actually, is that a thing? Because I mean, okay, so ammonia content, it's sterile coming out. Like, what is the benefit of using urine versus like just availability? I guess, or is it?
So with brain tanning and urine, so with that, what you do is you'd actually be removing all the fur from the whole hide completely and giving yourself a leather afterwards, instead of having a fur side and a hide side. So you'd put that all in a solution and just soak it in a bucket. And then when you bring it out, it opens up the pores enough to where the hair literally will like fall off. And all you have to do is just kind of pull it. So you're producing leather versus a hide.
Okay, and so what is the difference between leather and buckskin then? Just out of curiosity, just quality of finish, or is this like?
Yeah. So leather is more worked and more pliable. Buckskin and raw is a little bit more refined rawhide for the most part, with a deer element in it. So.
There you go. Let's see here. Scott says, "How much oil is in your urine?" Well,
you're the paramedic, Scott. You tell us.
Yeah, exactly. VT just asked a quick question here. Do you use a GPS to find the sets of the traps, or the sites of the traps, maybe? Or just know where they are?
I'm old school. I carry what I call green trail maps. I don't know if you guys have those. It's probably a 10 by 18 old school map that used to show a lot of hiking trails. It's a topo map. Yep. I grew up using those. GPSs are great. I've had a few instances where they failed me miserably on hunting trips, so I'll use it if I have it, but I will always back up everything I do on an actual physical map. So
yeah, that's right.
I kind of use both. Yeah.
Yeah, we have topo maps here as well, so same idea. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I think that's pretty much it. Last minute listener questions at all? Anybody? I think we covered off pretty much everything. Well,
It's very cool.
do you have a favorite wild meat by any chance?
Oh, as far as trap meat,
Yeah.
There's been a bunch.
Porcupine.
Porcupine's good. I actually never trapped a porcupine. That was shot by a friend of mine. So, but I have had porcupine before. They're pretty good. Favorite, like most unique, probably like a rattlesnake, which is not trapped. That was found again. But wild meat, yeah, definitely rattlesnake out in the wilderness was an experience.
So I guess with rattlesnake, it'd just be like a one giant long rib cage, or how does that work? Like,
Oh yeah, it's basically like a akin between like a fish and a chicken, but like the overcooked chicken on the bone. If that makes sense.
yeah, I mean that makes
Like
sense.
all the ribs on a chicken. Yeah.
Huh.
When you're trying to get the meat off there, so.
Cool. Well, I guess might as well move on to the podcast challenge then. Alan, you want to cover that one off?
Sure. Although we've just discussed how bad an idea it is to rely on this, practice building a field-expedient snare or a spring trap, and don't necessarily catch game if you're not licensed for it, but give it a try, see if you can do it, and then practice doing it lots, because apparently if you need to do it, you might as well put the odds in your favor and do a lot of it, which will also teach you how much you actually need in order to build the 100 to 1 ratio and get some actual food in your belly should the need arise.
Of course, we did this podcast challenge before we listened to Jason tell his tale, so I would actually even add to that, maybe buy a small live trap and just see if you can catch your raccoons or your squirrels nearby, and see how easy it is or how hard it is.
I tell people
Please check your
to
local
carry a
legislation
rat
before you
trap,
do that.
What's that, Jason?
the probably the best, easiest trap to carry would be just a large rat trap.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
For us, it's like if we have a problem raccoon, you can catch it and toss it away somewhere else. Like just take it out and go or whatever, or whatever you want to do with it. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Upcoming events. I don't want to hang myself here. So upcoming events. So Mapleseed Events now with I guess Ontario's reopening as well now. So Alberta and BC are kind of reopened. But same thing as your Appleseed down in the States, Jason. We have a Mapleseed up here.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't jinx it. So, if you want to know some basic shooting skills or whatever, go to mapleseedrifleman.com/events, and maybe there's a Mapleseed event near you. So give it a try, and maybe that's definitely worth your time for sure. Other than that, I was too lazy to find a deal of the week this week, so I didn't find anything worthwhile that time. And then time for shoutouts.
Works 4 hours for the first time in a month and can't manage to get anything else done. What a guy!
That's right.
I'll shout out the best cousins in the world. They are apparently listening to us tonight. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. It's only 6 hours, but it's a long 6 hours. So thanks for coming down, and we'll see you again.
Cool. I got a quick shout out here for Cody from Discord for the help with the electrical bits. So typical. I guess behind the scenes contact between listeners and stuff. It's fantastic. If we need something, somebody else can usually help us out. So it's a great thing. As a reminder, we're going to be talking about Dr. Alton's Survival Medicine Handbook probably towards the end of August by the time we get around to doing a book club again. But if you want to take a look at Dr. Joe Alton's Survival Medicine Handbook, it is certainly worth the while. I did put a link in the show notes.
Required reading for anyone that calls themselves a prepper.
That's right. It is good. It's very handy. I did put a link in the show notes for a survival PDF collection. I think I mentioned it once before, but it's one of those things where it's got like a dump of free books available online, and just I don't think I put in the show notes before, so I just got it in there as well. And that's pretty much it. So email and iTunes reviews.
We got an email from listener Marcus in Sweden, which was really, really interesting. So last week on the show, Jeff was mentioning that there was a cyber attack that shut down a lot of Sweden's retail. And so Marcus says, "Hi, listen to your podcast as always on Monday morning here in Sweden. I think yours are one of the best ones with a nice portion of humor, sometimes dark, but that suits me, mixed in with relevant content. You're welcome for that, Marcus. It is unclear today around 8 a.m. how many of the around 800 stores affected will be able to open today. An interesting thing is that some smaller stores in the same chain have been able to keep open since they seem to have opted out of the big centralized solution. The incident has also prompted the defense minister to comment that business and state agencies need to raise their readiness to prevent and counter future attacks. In the pamphlet, If Crisis or War Comes, that is sent out to all Swedish households, a cyber attack is at the top of the list of actions the country can expect to be hit by in a conflict situation. I think this pamphlet is quite unique as it's sent to all households with information on what to expect, of what everyone is expected to manage in a crisis or war. During the Cold War, this information was printed in all the phone books as well. In the 90s, it was discontinued, but a couple of years ago, it was sent out again to all households as the tensions with mainly Russia was escalating. At the time, all bomb shelters around the country were checked and ordered to be ready to be used within 24 hours notice. Two things resulted in the many outcries of causing fear. If you're not prepared, you should be worried, was the short reply. One was that the media went bonkers over the lack of space in the bomb shelters, would not hold all 10 million people. The reply to that was that is also in the pamphlet is that Sweden utilizes something called total defense, meaning that all citizens between the ages of 16 and 70 will be called for either military or civil defense service. So most of us will be in the service and then the space in the civilian bomb shelters will be quite sufficient. This was a needed wake-up call to many. This has been quite a long reply. Thanks again for a great podcast. I'll add a link to the pamphlet below if you want to check it out. Stay safe, from Marcus in the south of Sweden. So, Marcus, thank you so much for that. There's nothing better than firsthand information, and this pamphlet is also super cool. I'll be the first one to admit that my Swedish is less than great, but this particular version is anglicized, and it is fantastic. It's a great little thing. So everyone who's listening, give a look to this. It's 11 pages it looks like. It's in the show notes, which will be posted below or available on all of the sites when we finally get this published, and that's very cool. And thank you again for giving us all the information that you did, because it's great to see. It's one thing to see what happens when the media reports on it, and it's quite another to see what happens when people who are actually experiencing it tell us what's going on. So that was Marcus's email.
Well, that's awesome. So it was regarding the Kaseya denial of service attack, basically with the ransomware. So I guess if you don't have a just-in-time delivery system, I guess some of the smaller stores did better than if they were hooked up into the Borg of the centralized system. That's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. So interesting too, like the government, instead of saying, well, they are providing for their citizens if they got that many bomb shelters. Wow. But also the fact is they're also telling the citizens to wipe their own behind, which was nice to see, actually. They're not saying, like, if you're not prepared, you should be worried. I'm like, wow, that's a bold step for a government nowadays.
Absolutely.
That was pretty awesome, actually. I guess just like Switzerland, they're like, what they call it, armed neutrality. So good for them.
Yep.
But they're obviously aware of what the deal is as a government. That seems pretty switched on, that they say, well, yeah, ransomware attacks and cyber attacks are a thing and probably the first thing used. I mean, good for them. That's actually admirable government. I don't know how
it's fantastic. Well,
did I say that?
They even a broken clock is right twice a day, and this particular pamphlet it's pretty high level, but it has some great information. So it is excellent to see that this looks like it was published by the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency, and they're encouraging everyone to be prepared to be on their own. So much like Emergency Preparedness Canada says, help is coming, but it'll take a few days. Sweden's system is saying, we're going to need you to show up here. So you will either be conscripted into the armed forces. They call it civil conscription, so into organizations controlled by the government that are non-military. And then there's a third grouping called General National Service, which is helping out with organizations. So I'm just reading from the pamphlet here. Organizations involve organizations that must function even in the event of a threat of war and war. This means that you continue to do your normal job, work in a voluntary organization, or that you are tasked by I'm not going to try and pronounce that. I'm guessing that's some kind of government government cabinet. Arbist Fullmögildillen. Again, my Swedish is terrible. With performing the work, with performing work that is of particular importance to Sweden's total defense. So they're in no way saying the government is going to come take care of you. They're very much saying you are part of the solution. And then there's a little checklist of home preparedness advice. And I love that this particular page says, if Sweden is attacked, resistance is required. And that makes me so happy to see. I love seeing that on a government pamphlet. So I'm gonna read this a little bit more thoroughly, and maybe we can break this down on another episode. Because I think this pamphlet is worth a much deeper dive. So again, Marcus, thank you so much for giving that to us, because that's fantastic.
Cool. Before I move on to my email here, I got one last minute question here from Philip. Says, Jason, what do you carry for first aid gear?
A lot. I do have my own Evac. I carry tourniquets, blood clot, Israeli bandage, and a fully stocked first aid kit on top of just those few things. And there's many others that I carry on top of that. Yes, first aid is key. So, like I said, I'm out there. I'm cold. I'm wet. My hands are slippery. I'm swinging an axe. I'm digging, and I'm dealing with heavy things with swinging parts to it. So yeah, I run the risk of getting harmed very quickly if I'm not careful. So. Actually,
just a couple follow-up questions to that. Then, do you go out by yourself often, or do you usually have somebody with you? Is it kind of a buddy system?
I firmly believe in using the buddy system. It's me, my son, and my nephew that are licensed together, and we kind of always try to work our trap lines together in a season. So I try to have at least 2 or 3 of us working our lines together at all times.
So assuming you're at a cell phone range, then do you have a backup comm system at all on that one then?
I do not. I've looked at different things like the EPERP system that we have here, which would be like a pager that I can send out a beacon. Basically, if you hit the button, the cavalry comes. Unfortunately, it's not financially viable for me at this very moment, but it's something I've very much looked into.
That's awesome. All right, cool. See here, I have a email and iTunes review from Carmen. Says, if you guys ever need somebody for a pressure canning meat episode and to go into depth on it, give me a call. You were right on most of this, but there's a lot more you can do. So that's going back to our original canning episode, which is actually our highest downloaded episode of all the entire series. So I contacted Carmen, and she's willing to come on and give us a lowdown next month on actual pressure canning meat and go into like a deep dive on it. So looking forward to that. So yeah, we're hoping to hear soon from her. She should be here, I think, middle of the month next month. So thank you very much, Carmen, for reaching out.
Nice. Look forward to hearing
Fantastic.
that one.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's pretty much it, guys. With that, I'm going to bring episode 123 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please help us out and submit a review. It helps other people find us.
We do record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube for now. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast. Click the notifications tab. That will give you an alert when we're going live. You can find me at Alan, that's with 1 L, at prepperpodcast.ca.
Just say hi to my wife, Jennifer, Sean, Xander, Lily, and Kira are my children. Hi,
awesome.
guys.
If you have any last-minute trapping questions, for sure, just send some feedback to the show here, and we'll make sure we get forwarded on to Jason, and we can certainly get a response from that for you guys as well. If you guys want to reach out to Ian directly, you can email me at theislandretreat@gmail.com and on Gab and Odyssey at The Island Retreat. You can also find me on Canadian Patriot Podcast every week on iTunes and YouTube, and in the Discord group, Canadian Patriot Podcast, of course. Email us if you want an invite to the Discord group. There you can find us discussing why government waste in society has been bidding on trap lines. Anyways, thanks for joining us. Until next time, you can be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.
And have fun out there.